Dan Golden, welcome. How you doing?
Good to be here. And here
So,
is my basement.
welcome to the two most elaborate studios in America. I have the black wall. You have the basement.
I've decided to skip the virtual backgrounds and just be real. I wear velour and I do laundry in between calls.
Absolutely. I
And
think of you as velour. That's very on brand. Hey, so I was reading about your future of marketing post on your site. Had some really interesting stuff in it. And before we got started here, you teased me with a little something you're going to educate me about with Google. So maybe just kind of give me an overview of what you're talking about and what you're thinking about now for marketing.
yeah, so as an agency, most of the time we have to be focused on hitting the numbers this week and this in this month, and a lot of brands are and need to be focused on that. But you need to be putting a stake in the ground with with what's next. And sometimes that's choosing to innovate or building connected voice apps or, virtual assistants and kind of like rethinking your customer interactions. And then in some cases, it's an industry, the industry changes and you need to jump with it. Cookies are going away. And that's not entirely true, like first party cookies and um, it's not all changing. But if you look at that Lumascape, that slide everybody's seen in a presentation 7,000 times with 8,000 Martech platforms, a big part of that ecosystem is going to get shooken up because a lot of the tracking and the way audiences have traditionally been shared is going to be blocked from like a big chunk of the internet in like a year and a half. It's been known, right? This isn't like a new thing, but Google finally gave us either the nail in the coffin or at least the date on the calendar that marketers need to prepare for. So those are the kinds of things brands need to be focusing on now to get good at the tactics that are going to work in a couple of years from now.
So is it a settled idea yet about what to do next, or is it just more that there's a date we have to figure something out by?
It's a little of both, right? I've got my projections. There's a lot of great content out there, and a lot of platforms that are positioning themselves around kind of the post cookie world. I think in some ways, marketing is going to step back to where things were at the onset of performance marketing, where you're focused a little more on content than you are on audience, right? So the buzzword programmatic, it really means a platform that's buying with the audience at the center. And so the way a lot of those, you see display ads from B2B brands when you're looking at sports, right? The ads are targeted more to the audience and pay less attention to the actual content or sort of the context and the experience. So stuff like contextual targeting, direct buys with sites where you know your customers are going to be. We've kind of shied away from that in the previous years because you can buy that more efficiently. So, there's a handful of tactics there that marketers are going to need to just get re-engaged with and get really good at.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that, I mean, on the surface, that sounds like, oh, we have to go back to making better, more applicable advertising? Is that kind of where that's going?
Yes, and that shouldn't be an epiphany, but
Right. So instead of just buying things like, instead of having to work for it, instead you actually do have to work for it again.
you do. I mean, I think if you look at the way most media is consumed these days, it is with a thumb scroll, whether it's Google Discover or Facebook or LinkedIn or any of these, like it's feed based. And so, traditional advertising, you need to fit within the context of the platform and the way that media is being consumed. And that means a big change for brands related to search. Search, and certainly this is still true today. Driving traffic from Google is an important thing. We help a lot of brands do that. But in a lot of cases, especially with local brands, like you want to stay within maps. You're not looking for a restaurant website. Like you can make reservations directly on Google. You can view menus and order online directly. It's all happening within the app, right? So I think brands need to start thinking about like how they live within these ecosystems, especially related to search and Google, because more and more people are going to be interacting with your brand through a virtual assistant or through a third party tool, because like nobody wants to fill out a credit card and create an account when they're buying shit on their phone.
Right, and you introduced me to something that I wasn't paying attention enough about this sort of experimental voice ad stuff. I'm just curious, what is that, and where would it show up, and why would I not be terrified and want to get rid of it?
Well, monetization of voice search. I mean, I've got predictions and ideas, and there's some cool platforms out there that are doing that. Even through like podcast advertising or radio or online radio ads with Spotify. You can now have interactive ads where you ask a question, and if someone says yes, I want more information, it can actually be kind of a guided voice experience or a way to sort of interact with the ad. So all this stuff is creepy. I think all great marketing is creepy when you explain to someone how it's targeted. I remember back in the early days of Facebook, I wrote an ad specifically for my boss and mentor, Cam Balzer. I just put enough targeting criteria, and it was an audience of one, and I ran an ad that I wrote to him. Like, they don't allow that stuff anymore.
Yeah, that's great. I do hope you adopt "all good marketing is creepy" as your new tagline. That's very on brand as well.
Yes, all good targeting is creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how about, speaking of, being targeted and thinking about the context of, we've all been COVIDized and at home now for 8 or 9 months, and we're going to a big holiday season. Everyone's talking about how do we break out of things. What are things people should be doing right now that maybe they're not thinking about?
I would say, great question. I could answer that 1,000 ways. I would say I'll take the B2B angle. Right now, this is a really tough buying season for B2B sales, right? Like given the context and uncertainty of next year, now is the time to be getting introduced and sort of widening your sphere, right? So when there's quote unquote downtime, it's a great opportunity to sort of start building your pipeline, even if you just have to be really smart about the call to action, right? Someone's not going to want to meet with you this week. I got the typical email, 3 or 4 punch sequence where the last one is the breakup email. Someone started their sequence on the 24th of December and sent me the "you're not interested" breakup email on the 3rd, right? So just be context aware, but it doesn't mean you have to stop. Anyway, that's my epiphany for December.
It's funny. It really is. I think this year has been a lot about paying attention to not being completely out of tune and out of step with what's going on. And then in a way, I feel like a lot of it has overcompensated. And now the first paragraph of everything is, how's everybody? How's the kid? And that balance, it's tough because you want to be real and not out yourself as just it's a marketing email. And going into a lot of what I've talked to people about lately has been kind of looking at what do we do to come out of whatever malaise we've been in for a while, and a lot of it is to be more real. You've already talked about ads being going back to being more genuine, more on target.
Me joining a video podcast without putting away the laundry behind me. Right. Let's be real, man. This is 2020.
Yeah, I feel like it's officially past time. There's no more apologizing for the kids coming into frame or the dog or any of that kind of stuff. That's way over now. There's no reason to even think about that.
Yeah, or to wear non-stretchy pants.
Exactly. Hey, so this has been great. I thanks for the insight and educating on. You gave me a great clickbait title for "Cookies Are Going Away," says Dan Golden. So I'm definitely going to use that. This is cool. Thanks for the input today.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Hey there. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to hear more content just like that.